I had applied to hundreds of jobs, didn't get a single interview. This could be a nice business idea here. So I turned that into what started out as Mornings with.
Hey everyone, welcome to Behind the Frames podcast, and today we are joined by Matt Parkin. Matt Parkin is the founder of Mornings with Matt, an agency that focuses on social media growth, specifically on LinkedIn with content creation, and he's also a career coach with professional coaching experiences. And previously, Matt has built 3 organizations, being Leap Canada, Paragon Consulting, and Kobo.
A lot of times people will come up with a solution and try to find a problem to match their solution to. But it's really important to understand that problem first. And we started the organization with a Google form. Half the people I was chatting with on LinkedIn, you'd be going back and forth with each other in the comment section on your post and their post. And by the time you get on a call to meet each other 6 months later, you feel like you're best friends and you already know each other, even though you've never met in person before.
And today we talked about how he got started with posting on LinkedIn. We talked about how his brand identity has evolved over time. And we talked about how Matt goes about building authentic relationships with his community. And welcome to my conversation with Matt Parkin. Congrats on being recognized as one of the 30 under 30 by Founders Beta. I feel like, Matthew, you're a perfect example of what a creatorpreneur would look like who build businesses out of content. But before we dive into it, I wanted to rewind back to high school. Was entrepreneurship or was content something that you were considering?
Back in high school, I was big into sports. I was all set on studying kinesiology and sports management, but grade 12 biology marks weren't looking too hot, and I wasn't really enjoying the class, and so I had the thought to pivot and just study a general business administration degree in university. And I would say it wasn't until the end of my second year of university where the entrepreneurial bug really started to hit. I had applied to hundreds of jobs, didn't get a single interview. I thought I had good grades, I thought I had a good resume, but apparently not. And so I started building some entrepreneurial ventures on the side because I didn't have a job that summer. And so I started a nonprofit to help students with that transition from high school to post-secondary education. That was during the pandemic when a lot of schools were shutting down their open houses. People couldn't come and actually see campuses and talk to students. And so I met my co-founders for that in the comment section of a LinkedIn Live event. So that was the first time that LinkedIn really brought a lot of value to me in terms of introducing me to my co-founders there. That summer, I also started my own consulting company. So I started working with startups and small businesses and nonprofits to help them with recruitment, help them with digital marketing, help them with a bit of strategy work. And my goal with that was to see A, if consulting was actually something that I might be interested in pursuing career wise, and B, if it was something that I was actually good at or not, right? So that was the second entrepreneurial venture that I started that summer. And because I had lots of free time in my hands, I said, why not start a third? So as I was building those other 2 organizations, I was doing a lot of volunteer recruitment, volunteer hiring, and I was looking at hundreds of resumes. And so I started sharing tips on LinkedIn about job searching and things that I was seeing from the other side of the table. And a lot of people started reaching out asking for me to look at their resume. And so I thought, this could be a nice business idea here. So I turned that into what started out as Mornings with Matt career coaching and career services, where I was helping people with their resume, their cover letter, their LinkedIn interview prep. And that's since morphed into my current side hustle, the LinkedIn consulting and ghostwriting. So that was the story in terms of where the entrepreneurial itch started.
I see. I wanted to take a step back with when you talk about when in your second year summer, you decided to start those 2 entrepreneur ventures, being Leap Canada and Paragon Consulting. How or in what capacity, what did you learn about yourself? What are the things that you think you're better at than most people, and what are the things you feel like you have rooms for improvement?
Yeah, so a big learning for us with Leap was the importance of understanding your customer and doing your research before you actually build something to solve a problem, right? A lot of times people will come up with a solution and try to find a problem to match their solution to, but it's really important to understand that problem first. And we started the organization with a Google form. We had no website, no pitch, no Google Drive yet. We had a Google form and we surveyed a ton of people in our target audience to really understand what they were looking for and the value that we could provide. And that was something that led to a ton of success in that first year. We were featured on CTV News. We partnered with a couple of the big banks. We got featured in some publications, and that was very successful. So much so that we decided to roll out a career related program, and that flopped on its face because we did no research. We didn't talk to our audience, and it wasn't actually something that they were looking for. So that was one of the big learnings for me early on in my entrepreneurial journey is how important it is to go and talk to your audience. I think the second piece that you were asking about there in terms of strengths and things that have gone well would be being able to put yourself out there and do something, even if you don't necessarily have the confidence or the skills or abilities to do so. When I started Paragon, I was reaching out to startups and small businesses and nonprofits, and I hadn't done consulting ever in my life, right? But the value prop that I brought to these organizations was let's hop on a 30-minute call, tell me about your problems, I'll take them away, and I'll come back to you with something valuable. If it's completely useless, all you've wasted is 30 minutes of your time, right? And that gave me enough testimonials and client logos and recognition early on that I was then able to leverage those case studies to land more clients in the future. So I would say if you are thinking about starting an entrepreneurial endeavor, don't be afraid to go and work for free for those first 5 or 10 clients, get those testimonials, and then you can leverage that to start charging afterwards.
I see, I see. And about 3 years ago, I think it was April 2020 or 2021 when you started Matt like Mornings with Matt. And now you have accumulated a following of over 10,000 followers on LinkedIn. What keeps you going for so long?
I think it's been the people and the connection in the community, especially during the pandemic when everyone was, at home, being able to connect virtually with people and half the people I was chatting with on LinkedIn, you'd be going back and forth with each other in the comment section on your post and their post. And by the time you get on a call to meet each other 6 months later, you feel like you're best friends and you already know each other, even though you've never met in person before. And so that was something that was really special for me to get to find people that I really resonated with, that shared some of those common interests and passions and being able to build those relationships that I maybe wasn't able to get in my physical in person kind of life. So that was something that I really enjoyed. And in terms of what's kept me going is that because personal branding and LinkedIn have had such a profound impact on my life, I'd be ridiculous to stop doing what I'm doing because I've had so many amazing things happen from building a brand, inbound clients, inbound job opportunities. I've met co-founders, best friends, mentors. It's been a life-changing experience for me, and I'm really all about helping other people along in their journey so that they can see the value of doing it as well. And for those that are wanting to take that leap and make that leap, then I help support them along the way.
That's awesome. So at the beginning, what was the hardest part for you to creating content and how has that changed to now?
I think the hardest part in the early days is staying motivated to continue posting. When you don't have a lot of followers or connections and you're not getting a lot of engagement on your posts in those early days, it can be very discouraging. You start thinking, why am I doing this? Is this even worth my time? Is anyone even seeing my posts and getting any value out of that? And so that's something that I think is really hard to overcome in those early days. But for those that stick with it consistently, you will see that turn around and turn the course as you start building those relationships and as you start getting your name and your brand out there. In terms of how that changes later on in the journey, something that in terms of myself, because I've written over 500 LinkedIn posts for my own LinkedIn and another couple hundred for clients. And so I've gotten to the point where a lot of those ideas don't always come as naturally as they would if I was starting from ground zero and had never written a post before. So I think as you get further on in your journey, it's really important to think about what core topics have really resonated with my audience that I can potentially repurpose later on. And then how can I engage my audience to empower me to generate more content ideas as well? So something tactically that I'll do is every couple of weeks I will send a 10-second audio DM to a handful of people that have liked my post or followed my company page. I'll say, hey, appreciate you liking the post. Are there any other topics or questions you'd want to see covered in future content? And that has very quickly, with 15 minutes of my time, easily generated 20 or 30 post ideas. And so you can do that really regularly to get input and feedback from your audience so that you're not just basing your posting off of which topics are getting the most likes on my post. You're actually getting qualitative feedback from your audience as well.
Has How did the idea come to you with the sending 10 seconds audio to your audience?
Yeah, so it was something that I thought was a good way to stand out. There's a lot of tools and bots and automations out there that can very easily personalize and automate text-based LinkedIn messages. There's a lot of pages that will have executive assistants managing their pages. And so I found for me, by sending that audio message or even a video DM message, that's a great way to A, show that you value the person and you're not sending them an automated message, but B, for them to know that that is authentic and personalized, right? I can easily automate a text message, but I can't easily automate a 10-second voice note. And because nobody else sends those voice notes, people see a 10-second timer and a play button and they say, what's this, right? You want to click on it to learn more. So I find that the response rate is quite higher compared to text-based messages as well.
That's awesome, man. When you mentioned earlier, one of the biggest struggle is stay motivated and continue posting. Was there a moment when you realize, okay, like I think Mornings with Matt has the true potential to become a real business or a real thing? Do you recall a moment like that?
Honestly, I don't recall a specific light bulb moment where I knew that it was going to be a business. The moment that I do recall in terms of why I was creating content on LinkedIn and the power of personal branding, I remember very well. I was in a LinkedIn, not LinkedIn, a Zoom breakout room for a career fair or a job fair. And I hopped into a breakout room, and one of the recruiters said, "Oh, Matt Parkin, I've seen you on LinkedIn." And that was someone who I'd never met before in my life. I had no idea who they were prior to the call, but I had been showing up in their LinkedIn feed because we had a mutual connection who had liked my posts. And so that was something that really spoke volumes to me about the power of personal branding. And that was that light switch that caused me to continue building my personal brand.
I see, I see. And on the topic of personal branding, when you were back in, let's say, first or second year, especially second year, it was COVID, you were very early in your career when you're looking for a job. Has the definition of personal branding changed?
My definition has not changed, but my brand itself has changed. So, depending on your goals on the platform, you're going to want to take a potentially different approach. So, when I started, my goal was to land a consulting job at the time. And so a lot of my content was consulting related. A lot of my content was job search related. I wasn't trying to sell any business or product at the time. I was trying to sell myself to recruiters and hiring managers. But after I landed that job, it changed a little bit the approach I was taking on the platform. I then took a bit of a heavier approach and presence towards building my personal brand on behalf of my side hustles and my entrepreneurial ventures. And
Mhm.
so a lot of my content then moved away from that industry specific content and more towards entrepreneurial content, personal development content, leadership content, motivational content that could potentially resonate and build credibility with people that I could potentially sell to. So That was kind of the shift in terms of my personal brand, both with the post content as well as the profile. So when people visit your LinkedIn profile, you want to have a clear call to action and a clear message of how other people can help you. Right? You got to help others help you. And so if I go to your profile and you're looking for a job and I don't know exactly what kind of job you're looking for, I
Hmm.
can't introduce you to anyone in my network. Or if you're selling something and I can't really understand what you sell based on looking at your profile, then I can't really help you at all. But if you're super explicit about what you're looking for and how you can help others, that'll allow others in your network to better help you.
Absolutely, absolutely. And when you, in terms of building Mornings with Matt too, right? Like your personal brand has definitely changed, or your approach on your platform has definitely changed over time. At one point, you decided to start hiring interns or people to help, or part times to help build a platform. How did you go about hiring? To what capabilities are you hiring for, and how are you going about hiring?
So, funny story with hiring, I actually overhired interns that first summer. I
Mm,
had 7 part-time interns that were supporting the business, and that was after a booming January to April period with career coaching. And what I hadn't realized, because that was my first year doing that, was that there was a bit of a cyclical slowdown during the summer. And so the business really slowed down that summer. We didn't have as much work for the interns to support with. That was something that I learned from, and moving forward, tried to limit myself to only hiring 2 or 3 interns at a time to make sure that there was enough meaningful and fulfilling work for them to work on. But in terms of how I hired and connected with them, a lot of them came through my existing network on LinkedIn, through volunteers that had worked with Parkin Consulting, a couple through the Leap network. So a lot of that was through the personal brand that I had built. And since then, I've been able to tap into some awesome government funding programs and initiatives as well in the experiential learning space. So I use Ripen a lot. I use Venture for Canada. I've worked with Tech Nation and ICTC, and they all have some great programs where you can connect with student talent. So if anyone's looking for part-time interns and are looking to either get partial or fully subsidized wages, those are some great places to check from a hiring standpoint.
that's awesome. And now I wanted to talk about LinkedIn. LinkedIn as a platform. Like over the course of the past few years, LinkedIn has definitely become one of the hottest platform. It's getting a lot more competitive, and ghostwriting has become a thing. Can you tell me more about what is ghostwriting?
So ghostwriting is essentially when somebody else is writing your posts for you. So when you see a lot of executives on LinkedIn, they're too busy to be writing a lot of their posts. A lot of them are not good writers. Some of them don't know what to post about, or they just don't have the time. And so, what a lot of executives will do is either their executive assistant or someone on their marketing team, or they'll hire a freelance ghostwriter to write their content for them. And so, that's something that I learned about through someone in my network who had a business doing this. I started doing some freelancing for him, working with some of his clients. I wrote LinkedIn posts for executives in retail and mining, sustainability, financial services, and it was a really cool opportunity to learn a ton because you have to learn all about that person's life and business so that you can write posts that sound like they're coming from them. And so, because I developed strong writing skills from writing my own posts, that allowed me to effectively write content for other people as well. So I really have enjoyed doing it. It's something that I continue doing to this day, not only because it pays well, but it's also a great learning opportunity to, for 1 or 2 hours a month, get exposure to an industry that you're not actively working in. I've worked with clients in scrap metal industry, crypto, construction, tons of industries that, I wouldn't necessarily want to spend 60 hours a weekend, but are a lot of fun to learn for a couple hours a month.
That's awesome. Do you remember your very first ghostwriting client? How was your experience?
Yeah, so my first ghostwriting client that I secured on my own, I got that through a cold email. They ran a software development agency. So I started creating content for them, both to position themselves to software talent to potentially hire more employees, and then also to technology executives and those who might want to hire a software development firm to support them with some of their development goals. So that was one of my first clients. They ended up churning. That was something that I saw a lot of in my first year doing the ghostwriting, is that wasn't able to retain a lot of my clients. But that was actually a good thing because I realized in the early days that I was grossly undervaluing the value and the service that I was providing. I had come in to undercut the market to try and get a competitive advantage. But what I realized is that by doing so, I was undervaluing the value I was delivering. And because the dollar value was so low on the expenses sheet, it was falling down the priority list with a lot of my clients. So I ended up actually raising my prices consecutively, almost doubling them each quarter for 3 quarters following that, and have since continued moving up market to price my services competitively at a premium and adjust my target market to really help people that are selling higher ticket items and see the value in LinkedIn. I've also adjusted the service mix as well. So instead of just ghostwriting for people, I started doing training workshops. I started doing consulting engagements where I'm helping advise on the existing content that they have rather than writing it for them. So helping them along the journey. I find that it's a lot more fulfilling to empower other people to reach that goal of theirs instead of having someone paying me to do it for them.
I see, I see. And with ghostwriting or LinkedIn as a platform, what are the common mistakes that you see people making with their profile or when their content or with their content?
So we talked about the lack of clarity in the profile already.
Mhm.
Something else would be the lack of clarity on your goals. So sometimes people will come, they'll put up their profile, they'll start creating content, and they don't really have a goal. And if you don't have a goal, it's very hard to stay motivated because you don't have that light at the end of the tunnel that you're working towards. So if you're posting content and you're not getting enough likes or impressions, it can be hard to stay motivated. But if you have a goal in mind that you're trying to reach, and maybe your goal is that you want to add value and educate others and build relationships in your industry, that's something that you can still accomplish, even if your post gets 2 likes and 100 views. Right? You don't need to go viral on LinkedIn. I have never gone viral on LinkedIn. I think the best post I had was about 80,000 views, but it was very small compared to other folks on the platform in terms of their reach. But that's not my goal. I don't really care about going viral. My goal on the platform is to meet interesting people, learn a ton, and help others along in their journey. And so if people aren't getting value from my posts, they can scroll past or unfollow. And I think that's the important mindset to have, is to not get discouraged if people aren't liking and commenting on your posts, because there's a lot of lurkers on the platform who will never like and comment on a post and they will just scroll by. So I'd say keep being consistent with your content. Another thing from copywriting standpoint that a lot of people struggle with is making their posts easily skimmable. A lot of my early posts were massive walls of text that were not visually appealing. And so it's really important to make your posts very easy to skim. Use 1 or 2 or 3 lines at a time instead of having a massive essay on your post, and try to incorporate images and videos to mix up the content type that you're posting. This would be a couple tips there.
I see. Have you ever thought of diversifying across different platforms and you actually had an arc when you spent almost over a year on TikTok? Can you tell me more about that experience?
So the platforms that you spend time on, I think, are largely dependent on who you're wanting to target with your content. So when I was primarily doing career coaching, I was doing a lot of career content on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube Shorts because there were a lot of job seekers and individuals on those platforms. With my new focus in terms of a business to business audience, I don't see as much value to me creating content regularly on those other platforms. I've started creating more content on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it now to kind of be my secondary channel in addition to LinkedIn. But I found that LinkedIn has been my bread and butter and somewhere that I've continued to tap in to. And I would say if you have content, it doesn't hurt to repurpose it. It's a great way to be efficient, but also reflect on where's your audience spending time because it might be better value for you to go and post on Pinterest or to join a Slack community or to speak on a podcast compared to, posting 5 times on Instagram, depending on who your audience is that you're reaching.
I see, I see. That makes a lot of sense. Like, I think with platforms, understanding who's on the platform, understanding who your target audience is incredibly important. And when you mentioned earlier, when you talked about it's very important to have a goal, it's really important to be able to see the light at the end of the tunnel. What would you say your goal is with your platform?
My goal right now is to help others reach their full potential. It's something that I really enjoy doing. There's been a common stream throughout my life. I was teaching swimming, I was working at a camp, I was officiating sports, I did some tutoring, I've done consulting, I've worked in sales, I've done career coaching, and all of these things have all tied back to that theme of helping other people and making their life a better experience. And so that's something that gives me a lot of passion and motivation. So much so to the point that it doesn't feel like work. This feels like one of my hobbies that I do because I enjoy doing it. I learn a lot. It keeps me intellectually stimulated and I get to meet a lot of really cool people. So that's really what my goal is right now in terms of getting to meet people and continue my learning. I think if there was ever a day where I stopped learning or stopped enjoying it, then I would stop doing it. But that day has not come, and I'm doubtful that it will come anytime soon.
And I'd like to ask the question, what is the nicest thing someone has done to you?
Good question. I'm not sure if this would be at the top of the nicest things, so this is just a recent example that comes top of mind. But when I posted a couple of weeks ago about that 30 under 30 award piece that you had mentioned, and I had folks that maybe I'd chatted with 2 or 3 times in my previous journeys, maybe had a demo with for a sales call, but hadn't been super close with. And I had a lot of people reaching out to congratulate me who were complimenting my leadership skills or my authenticity, and they appreciated my vulnerability on the platform. And that was something that felt really good because not a lot of people say, "Oh, I like your posts," but hearing it from people that I didn't think even saw my posts or didn't think we had as strong of a relationship as it's apparent to me that we do, I think was something that was very nice. And so I would say that if you are online and you see people who are posting content, it takes a lot of time and energy and willpower to put that content out there. So if you follow people online that you like and resonate with their content, like don't be afraid to drop them a note and just thank them for the post. It can really go a long way.
Absolutely. And for the podcast, I'd like to close it off by asking you to give a challenge to the audience who are tuning in. Is there anything top of mind?
My challenge for everyone would be to think about what they want their personal brand to be and to go out and write a LinkedIn post with something you learned from this podcast episode.
Awesome. Sweet. Where can our audience find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn, Matt Parkin. You can also check out my website, mwmconsulting.org.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Matt, for coming to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Alex.